What's up YouTube, the kid's good here, and today I'm going to give you the top 5 tips for winning the early game in Fortnite. Be sure to stick around until the end because each of these tips is critical for your success in the early game. So if you're trying to improve your Fortnite gameplay, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn the notifications on because I make Fortnite improvement videos weekly. So let's jump right into it. So the first tip I want to give you guys is where to land. That, in my opinion, is the most important part. You want to land in the back 25% of the map, and the reason you want to do that is there's going to be a lot less people. I'm making this video so that you guys can dominate in the early game, and the best way to do that is when you're not going up against 100 different opponents, like if you're dropping Tilted, or if we would have dropped Pleasant in that particular situation. So if we drop in the back part of the map, not only are we going to have to go up against less people, but there's less RNG factor. You're not going to land on a house with 3 other people and have to fight for a gun. You can usually get a gun without having to even see anybody and get a decent amount of materials. The second half of where to land is where to land within the city. I always choose the back outside house because then I'm not surrounded from people in other houses rotating into me. And the reason this tip is so important is because I can't tell you how many times I've jumped in the first, 5 seconds of the bus route and landed with 3 other people on a house and, we have to fight for a gun. Landing like this puts you in a much better position so that you can get a gun, and then by the time you push out, you still have all of your health because we all know that if you land on a house with somebody else and you trade shots, you're going outside to fight other people and you may only have 30 health. So doing it like this is the safest bet to win in the early game. Now, the second tip that I have for you guys is landing awareness. So once you pick a good location, you have a good building, you need to be aware of your surroundings. Like there, I saw a guy, he's the only guy that I observed coming into the city off to the northeast. So I have a general idea of where he's going to be. So now that I've landed in a safe location, and I was aware where he landed, I have time to get a gun. I'm not forced to get in any really quick fights, and then I can rotate into him relatively quickly. However, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time looting building to building before pushing towards him. I want to catch him off guard, so I'm going to get what little loot I need to be able to win a fight against him. So whether that's a decent gun, a small amount of materials, whatever the case may be, I want to push to him immediately. I want to take him out of the game. I want to catch him off guard, and I also don't want him taking my shield. So we picked a decent location of landing, we landed in a good house, and now we were aware of where he landed. It's time to take him out of the game. Now, personally, I don't recommend being overly aggressive, especially in a situation like this, because I want to be able to get a couple of shots in before he knows I'm there. If I just straight start building up towards him and I try to get on the roof, he can get a defensive stance and then we can be kind of in a standoff. So I want to get these shots in before he even knows I'm there, and then we can get into engagement because I want to try to take the advantage the best that I can. And remember, this tip is all about map awareness when landing. If we wouldn't have known where he was, he could have caught us off guard like we caught him off guard, and we may have been taken out of the game. So knowing where people are when you land is a very important tip to master. The third tip I have for you guys is debatably number 1 on my list, but it is materials. It is having enough materials to get into an engagement, because early game, those who have the most materials usually win the fights, because you'll see later on in this clip I get into a fight where somebody runs out of materials, and because they ran out of materials, it gives me the upper hand and I'm able to win the fight. So when you land in a house in a safe location, you're aware of where people are, it's time to tear that house apart. Get every single gun you can and get every little bit of material, because you want to walk out of a house with 200-300 at least materials. Now, I will tell you that this strategy varies from situation to situation, because in the last clip, you can see that I didn't really go for a tremendous amount of materials, but I only had one other person to fight. Here, there were tons of people who landed here, so I knew that I would be in multiple engagements with not a lot of time to get materials, so I have to get them while I'm in my house. Now, when you have a lot of people landing near where you are, you have to rely on your audio cues to figure out where people are, and in the next part of this, I heard somebody on the roof, I built to the roof, he drops down, he's now inside under the house with me on the roof, and I eventually get into an engagement with him, which is where those materials come back into play. Now, because as you can see, I only have 17 health, I do not want to get into a fight with this guy before I get any more health, so I need to disengage from this situation. It's when I try to disengage that he actually engages me, and I'm actually forced to build up on him. And this is why materials are such a huge part of the early game, because had I not had these materials, I wouldn't have been able to build up like this to get the height advantage on him, who clearly doesn't have any materials, and be able to take him out of the game so easily. The biggest takeaway here is when you're dealing with multiple enemies, you want to have a lot of materials, because having a lot of materials will get you the advantage in most fights, and it usually works out for me. So master getting materials in the early game. So the fourth tip I have for you guys is try to not fight inside at all costs, and the reason being is because of the third person looking. If you didn't already know, you will always have an advantage when you are looking over the right side of your shoulder instead of the left, and when you're inside fighting with someone, you may not always have the opportunity, like I do in this clip, to be able to look at somebody on the right side of the camera. So when possible, you want to try to bring the fight outside or just avoid the fight altogether, because remember, these tips are all about how to win the early game, and fighting inside will always increase your odds of dying before the game even starts for you. So in this particular clip, I had decent game awareness. I landed on the roof, jumped down, gathered a shotgun inside the house, and when somebody came into the house, this is where the mistake was made by me trying to fight them in the house, because they had the angle advantage. Now, what I should have done is when the guy outside comes inside, I should have either left the fight altogether or I should have played passively on the stairs. Ultimately, though, I should have just left the fight in general because he had the advantage of height. He also had the advantage of angles because he was in the bathroom. So try to avoid fighting inside at all costs, because it is the easiest way to improve your early game, because it's one less way you can die. Now, the fifth and final tip I have for you guys is learn when to walk away from a fight. In this particular clip here, I have 15 health. When I hear somebody under me, it is time to leave when you're in a particular situation like that, because all it takes is one bullet to take you out of the game. As of right now, I have 1 kill, and I don't want to risk not getting any more kills because I picked a stupid fight to get into. So I want to disengage from this fight and forget about it altogether. I want to go looking for meds. Now, if I find meds and I get healed up, I can come back and fight him. But when you're that low on health and you have that much of a disadvantage, just know when to walk away. And it is the last tip I have for you when it comes to winning the early game. Like I said earlier, if you can learn how to master these 5 tips, you'll start winning almost every early game encounter you run into. I made this video for a lot of you on Reddit that told me your biggest area of opportunity was the early game encounter. If you guys want to see me do a video on the in-depth of the late game situations, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until next time.